Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Dungeons and Dopamine.
Ta-da! Hey!
This is Brie. And Jess.
We do some stuff.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Cool.
Also, this is Dungeons and Dopamine podcast.
Woohoo!
Episode 85.
Seems like a lot.
I wish that everyone could have seen your face. I feel like you were like reading a book in your head or something.
Hold, please. I have to get through this part.
This is so sad.
I'm actually listening. I have like earphones in.
That explains why you don't want headphones anymore.
No, I listen to books the whole time we podcast.
I mean, like, not gonna fault you for that.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
I would probably start at some point saying the words that they're saying in my ear out loud, though. This is the biggest problem is...
100%.
Or literally do what you just did a minute ago and
Just
stop and stare.
Blank stare with blinking.
Maybe cry sometimes at random because
That
books
would be
make
you.
me cry.
You'd just be sitting here sobbing. This is the final recording of
Countdown.
2024.
It is that.
Even though you guys are listening to it sometime in January. This is our final 2024 recording. That's why we're like this.
I mean, we'd be like this regardless, but but yes, absolutely.
I like to have excuses, okay?
And it's like icy out, so tomorrow we might not, no one might go and nowhere.
You're so good
My
with
book
words.
is getting really good. Give me a minute.
I keep thinking, I'm like, Connor's totally going to have school day, or a school day tomorrow. A snow day tomorrow. But he doesn't have school anyway.
They're like, it's really gross out. Have the kids come to school.
Please send them. We know it was going to be the first day of break, but we would prefer you to put your children on the bus and send them here. Thank you.
Please sugar them up before they come.
We love post-vacation children.
Absolutely.
That would be a nice service that the school should offer.
Right. Mm-hmm. Every teacher just put us on a hit list. So there's a weird topic shift, and I was trying to, like, through all of this, come up with a transition, and I don't have one. So we're just transitioning right now.
Perfect.
All right. I guess
what are we transitioning to?
So I had a day today. I've been having quite a week. It's been fine in the long run, but it's just been one of those, like.
And you're like leading up to the holiday week where two holiday weeks where everything's going to be screwed up anyway.
And I'm so tired. I'm just so tired. Like I was explaining to my mom on the phone the other day, actually. Not dead mom. I posted that story on TikTok today. Anyway. So I was telling her, so when we were doing construction, the end of construction was like Disney. Mm-hmm. Yay, that was really cool.
It was like a goal for you.
Yes,
Get this much done by this time, so when we come home, it's not
bothering us, or And I feel like we did pretty good. There were a few like odds and ends that we needed to finish when we got back, and still to this day, but we did pretty good. And then after Disney, I knew that I would be sad, but also I knew
I would fall into a deep depression for the rest of the winter.
Exactly. So I prepared for that by making Mickey waffles every day. So okay, home from Disney, and I still had like a purpose. I mean, I know I have an everyday purpose, but you know what I mean. I had a bigger purpose, and it was to get ready for Thanksgiving, because I host Thanksgiving, and no one has big expectations, but I do. So I got ready for Thanksgiving, and after Thanksgiving, I was getting ready for the family Christmas party, which was super cool, and I wanted the house to look nice because they haven't seen it all finished. And last time they were here, there was a pile of furniture in my, I don't have a real library, but in my library space. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I had a point up until last week Saturday, and that's when the party happened. And then after that, we played Baldur's Gate all day on Sunday.
I thought about you on Sunday. Just very busy today. Doing nothing. So jealous.
So I think now that my brain knows that we're done with the rush of real life, it's like, yeah, hey, babe, we've been tired for 4 years. It's time to chill.
We're just done now.
So anyway, that's a long way to say. At work, I had a coworker who went on vacation. Sounded like an amazing vacation. She went to different places in Europe, and I was like, I'm jealous. But she came back, and she didn't get sick, which shocks me, but she doesn't have a voice, which is awful. And I'm like, when I got off a call with her earlier, I was like, I want to tell you to feel better, but you don't feel bad. And then if I say sound better, it sounds like I'm being rude. I'm not really sure the
sound
appropriate
better next time, okay?
Do better. So
be better.
She asked me if I could host the event we're hosting tomorrow, which means I would be on camera and talking, and I had planned my week out so that I would be able to work through the event tomorrow because I'm on it, but I don't have to be on it.
I just have to be present.
And I was like, well, I mean, I can make it work. She's like, well, no, don't worry. I'll talk to someone else about it. And I was like, well, if you talk to someone else and they can, that'd be amazing. If not, then let me know and I'll make it work. Well, then I sat here feeling guilty about it.
Of course you did.
For hours. And went like ranting to Ryan about it, and like, not that it's no one's fault.
How dare my coworker need help and ask me, and I feel bad saying no.
And I'm like, what's she even gonna do? I can't like not do it because then who's gonna do it? Anyways, it worked out. I don't have to host tomorrow, but I still felt really bad for most of the day. And then like thought of all of the times I've covered for other people and like it's some sort of competition, and then I got mad that I felt guilty. So I went through like the gamut of emotions today, and now I'm tired.
And now
Again.
I'm exhausted.
Now I just want to play Baldur's Gate for the rest of the year.
I feel like I'm still helping out at the township here and there, but I feel less tired than I have for 4 years.
The show is terrible.
Somebody loves us.
We've got at least like 2.
Yeah, Ryan and
Zach?
yeah, probably.
I have a really great story to tell you.
Yay!
This is a story I've alluded to a few times. And I actually started doing an episode on vampires, and it got kind of big and overwhelming. So I think that's going to have to be a 2-parter.
At least.
Yeah. And so instead, I decided I wanted to tell you a story about the Irving family. All right. In 1916, James Irving and his wife Margaret moved to a small home on the Isle of Man. Have you ever heard of the Isle of Man?
I have not.
It's like a European island, but it's also very Celtic.
Ooh.
I thought that you would really like that.
I do love Celtic.
The people who originated, I guess, on the Isle of Man are called the Manx people. That is also, ironically, where the Manx cat comes from. The Isle of Man. I have a Manx cat.
Which we talked about last week.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's a really small island. It is apparently very, very beautiful, but it also has a lot of history, like folklore, paranormal, kind of. I actually might try to do a whole topic on it, just for funsies. The home that they decided to move into was called Dorlish Cashin, and this makes me just want to name my home.
Yeah, that wasn't a name I was expecting. It doesn't seem very official. I didn't know we could just name it anything.
Yeah, I vote we name our homes. Mm-hmm. We'll have to report back on this.
Yes.
This is important. It was a cute little kind of cottagey house, and it did have a fair amount of kind of lore already to it. I don't know it, unfortunately.
Go back and fix that. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, give me a minute. You listen to your book.
I have plenty to keep myself occupied. Don't worry.
The home was pretty remote. It was not too far from a very small town, but far enough that you would consider it a good commute to and from. And it had no power. There was no power to it. I don't know if it had plumbing, but it definitely did not have power. James was an avid journaler, and most of what we know about this case kind of came from him and some of the paranormal investigations around it.
Ooh.
I know that the family moved for a reason, but I don't know what the reason is. I watched a whole video about it, could not find it again. So no one gets to know the reason unless they find the video themselves. Also, the first time I heard of this case was from And That's Why We Drink. It didn't actually go back. Yeah, obviously. I didn't actually go back to them to get any of my research because I love the show so much and I love the way they do their topics. I didn't want it to just become like a word for word on them for several reasons. But
you're like, here, let me just press play and
Exactly.
let their episode play.
You listen to M and they're going to tell you all about this. So the little family, the 2-person family, became very quickly a 3-person family when their daughter Voiri was born. For about 13 years, they lived a really normal, I guess with quotes around it, life in this little cottage. As like normal as it can be to live in a little cottage on a little island where there's I think the island had power, just not the house.
Right.
But in September of 1931, James began to hear scratching inside of the walls. He assumed, like we would because we live in the middle of the woods, that there were rodents.
Flying squirrels.
Yeah, exactly. Squirrels, mice, not raccoons. Those might be a little too big.
That would be terrifying.
Yeah, so raccoons and
So on
stuff.
that, yeah.
Scratches. They assumed they had rodents, and then the scratching started getting louder and more kind of intrusive on their lives, and then it started to turn into banging. The family still just assumed that it was rodents or some sort of nuisance animal or something.
But they're not investigating it?
Well, they're getting there.
Okay.
Turns out they didn't need to investigate so much as call a pastor. But anyway, James thought that he might be able to scare them out by kind of making noises and like growling and stuff. It was a different time back then.
Right. Right.
And I don't know if he was maybe banging on the walls as well or something, but he's trying to scare them out until the rodent began mimicking him back. So he would growl at the wall and whatever was in there would growl back at him. So he started to sort of, I hate saying play with this, but he started to kind of test it. And he would make noises and it would mimic him. They say that it started out by sounding a lot like a dog and then a gurgling baby. I
am terrified. I have listened to approximately 84 of your stories.
Some of them I was in and out, but
And this one's,
I gave myself goosebumps
Yeah.
and I wrote this.
Yeah.
So slowly but surely the mimicking became words and even sentences, and the voice would speak
why
to
did
them.
it start as growling and progress?
Did not
why
know
is
how
it
to
learning?
speak until
Why
James
is it
taught
learning?
him.
I have to go home now. I don't even want to know how this ends.
Connor would be so sad. We'll leave it for a minute.
Like, we have get in the truck.
Go.
We have to go.
So yes, this is terrible. Eventually, the voice introduced himself to the Irving family and told them that his name was Jeff, G-E-F, and that he was a mongoose. Jeff the Talking Mongoose. So I finally got into the Jeff the Talking Mongoose story. Side note, the Isle of Man is not a home for mongoose or mongooses.
Mongoose.
Mongoose. But he also told them, and I'm going to quote this directly, "I am a freak. I have hands and I have feet, and if you saw me, you'd faint, you'd be petrified, mummified, turned into a stone or a pillar of salt." Which is, for those who might not know, a biblical reference.
Right.
Which,
And a Medusa reference
yes,
before that.
yes, stone, yes, which at this point I'd be out. Like, okay, this is your place. You can live here.
So you want this house? Because you got this house.
I'm going somewhere with power and
no talking mongooses.
Sharp knives. But the Irvings didn't leave. They didn't call a priest. They lived with Jeff. They did claim later on. Your face. You look so disappointed in them.
I just, like, okay.
I know. You're going through all of the emotions I went through when I heard this story. They did later on claim that Jeff would alert them if someone was coming to their home, or if, like, say, an unfamiliar dog came into their yard. He would catch rabbits and leave them for the family, sort of like a cat. Unlike a cat, he would keep mice out of the house, but instead of killing them, would just frighten them so they wouldn't come back. So he must have learned that from James as well.
He just growled at
them. So that all sounds kind of fun.
Wait, did they ever... Are they seeing this mongoose? They're just hearing him in the walls.
They report that they did see Jeff. Jeff was chatty. Like, he liked to talk. But he was also moody. On occasion, Jeff would curse at and speak rudely to the family. He really seemed to enjoy bothering Margaret, who did not speak to him as often. She was the mother. I read more than one claim that Jeff would follow them to the grocery store and walk along with them, but on the other side of the bushes, just like chattering. But he would also throw stones at them as they walked. Oh, and he did traverse the island, according to them, and also brought back a lot of gossip about the neighbors.
What?
Oh, man. So, I'd love to stop and discuss this, but I gotta tell you more. There's more. Jeff would talk about really strange and spooky things because it's not enough that he exists.
That he's a talking mongoose?
Yeah.
That doesn't belong on this island?
That curses at people. So
and learned to speak.
Yeah. Anyway, so he talked about things like different dimensions, violence, and splitting atoms, which doesn't seem like a big topic of conversation in the 30s.
Or mongooses.
Right. He claimed that he was born in India in the 1800s. He says that he lived with a man named Holland who had a hunchback and wore a green turban. He said he traveled to England with Holland, but to get to the island, he ended up with a farmer who imported mongoose to cull the rabbit population. This makes some sense because Jeff is a very good rabbit hunter, leaving them for the family. He decided when he got to the island to live in the Irvings' home. He claimed to understand several different languages: Hebrew, Italian, Hindustani, Russian, Welsh, and Manx, and of course English. And then Manx, of course, being the native people on the island. He told James this and said that he could always understand people when they were speaking around him, but he could not speak back until he taught him. Jeff seemed to be particularly focused on Voiri.
The baby.
Yes, who by this time, because they got through 13 wonderful years of normalcy, was a preteen, or like an early teen. Mm-hmm. So in several posts I read that he would sleep in her room and that they even made like a little nest for him. And then one post claimed that they locked her. She was scared of him, and so they locked her in their room with them. The parents did. But Jeff got really mad about that and started doing like poltergeisty things, like objects floating and noises, and
not like mongoose things. No. Like, I'm gonna destroy your house because you took the baby away from me. I'm gonna like
open up all the flour or something,
spread it around your house. Exactly. Or like knock things off shelves.
Nope. Definitely creepy poltergeisty crap.
Huh.
So the one article that I read on this said that they reported that the door started warping at the top because he was so mad. A lot of the things that Jeff claimed would change on occasion. So his stories were never very consistent, including saying that he was a poltergeist and also the ghost of a mongoose and also an earthbound spirit.
How did we get 85 episodes in before we talked about Jeff the mongoose?
Because it was creepy and I have to spread these ones out. So in the end, Jeff was pretty crappy. He'd curse, he'd speak rudely, like I mentioned before. He would sometimes spit on visitors if they displeased him. He would steal food like sausages and bacon from the frying pan as they cooked. He stole little household items like a needle and thimbles and things like that, and then would throw them through little knot holes in the walls. Sorry. One article I read did say that James tried to poison him once, and it worked, but it just made him sick. It didn't kill him. And then he started threatening James that he would kill him if he ever had the opportunity and stuff. Another article said that James didn't actually poison him, but gave him food that he didn't like, and that Jeff was yelling at him because he didn't like it. It was a carrot. And made him, they said, throw up. It made him throw up.
So either he was trying to murder him or he was trying to feed him healthy things, and Jeff was like, I hate you!
You're poisoning me!
Don't make me do this!
Oh, it's so weird. As friends and neighbors, of course, on the island, being a very small island and probably, to be frank, and sort of rude, a boring island.
Yeah.
They started hearing stories about Jeff, and the tabloids eventually picked this story up. And this is where it gets interesting, because it hasn't been interesting enough.
Wait, there's more.
People traveled to the Isle to ask questions and try and get a photo of Jeff. They spoke to locals and several people who claimed to have heard Jeff's voice. 2 claimed to have actually seen Jeff. Unfortunately, the reporters did not see or hear any evidence, and the family claimed that Jeff said he didn't like to be photographed. The family left treats for Jeff, like I mentioned, the carrot, and they had a...
poisoned carrot.
Exactly. They had a little saucer. Saucer is the right word. They had a little saucer that they suspended from the ceiling that they would put treats in, and then he would apparently come when he thought no one was looking and take them out of the dish.
On the ceiling?
Rafters, like an old house with big, airy, roofy rafters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So eventually James provided hair, as saying that it was Jeff's. This is where things start kind of unraveling for us a little bit, which good, because otherwise it's terrifying.
Yeah.
They did say that the hair that he claimed was Jeff's was actually their family dog's. Experts took a look at it. James also provided molds of what he claims were paw prints from Jeff. There's photos if you ever want to look them up. They're different sizes, and they look a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
One man said that one of them possibly could have been made by a dog, but he did rule officially that none of them were made by a mongoose, which I have a feeling Jeff was a liar.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're believing that Jeff is a mongoose.
Anyway, so Henry Price, I don't know if you've heard that name before, but he was a really, really well-known, back in the 30s or so, paranormal investigator. Mm-hmm. He was a very, very skeptical paranormal investigator.
Ooh.
This is another topic. Actually, this is why Em talked about this on, and that's why we drink. Like, some of these hauntings or whatever, these claims, he just went in and like trashed them. Like, just proved, no.
These are liars.
These are complete idiots. So he visited the Irving family, and I'm going to read you a quote directly from Wiki because I feel like they put it in the best way. He observed double walls of wooden paneling covering the interior rooms of the old stone farmhouse. This made it very airy in the interior space between the stone and the walls, and made the whole house one great big speaking tube, with walls like soundboards, he said. By speaking into one of the many apertures in the panels, it would be possible to convey the voice to various parts of the house. Price and his investigative partner felt that only daft or simple people would fall for the evidence as presented, which I fell for the evidence as presented, but we weren't there, so we're just getting the secondhand. Nandor Fodor is another paranormal investigator. He was the research officer for the International Institute for Cyclical Research.
All right.
That is a mouthful. He stayed in the Irving's house for a week. He did not hear or see Jeff. He didn't believe that the Irvings were trying to deceive people, but believed that this might be something psychological. He specifically does say that Jeff was possibly based on a split off part of Jim Irving's personality. James, same.
Oh.
Obviously. Eventually, James got very sick. He passed away, and Margaret and Voiry left the home. Ironically, Jeff was never heard again. They did try to sell the home and had to sell it way under market value. And it was very difficult for them to sell because they had built this
it was haunted by a mongoose.
A raging one.
An asshole mongoose.
The owner who owned the house after the Irvings claimed that he shot and killed Jeff. But Voiry said that it wasn't possible because what the man shot was a black and white animal that was just too large to be Jeff. I hate everything about this.
Right?
Voiry stayed strong in her, word that Jeff was real. She even said that she wishes he wasn't because the family was terrified of him. So just quick, some theories that people have thrown out. I don't know. I highly suggest if you want more information on Jeff, you look up some of the things that he said. I mean, quote unquote, that he said. But all right, some of the theories. Some people believe to this day that Jeff was real. I've read varied accounts of people thinking the story was cute and endearing.
Liars.
Yeah, I get the creeps.
Jeff sounds awful.
I get the creeps from this every single time. There were tons of articles about whether this was a poltergeist, a ghost, a demon, all sorts of theories out there. Very interesting reads. It's just also way too in-depth to start getting into. Did you know that there are different kinds of hauntings?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe?
Yeah, it's very interesting, but also I can't talk about it right now because there's just not time.
But also, more 2-hour-long episodes ahead.
Exactly. As I did suggest a little bit earlier, some people thought that this could be a personality, I don't want to say defect, but I mean more of, as I said, like a split personality, or the effect of just a broken or unstable mind. It's possible that James or Voiry could have been mentally unstable, or possibly both of them, and having some kind of mental breakdown or hallucinatory psychotic break. Many people think that Voiry is 100% responsible for Jeff. In my opinion, this is the most popular theory that I found. In 2001-ish, one of her childhood friends went to a radio show and said that Voiry was not only a very talented ventriloquist, but also a very talented rabbit hunter.
Interesting.
This, combined with a combination of the chaos completely ending when she left the house, has led a lot of people to believe that she was the cause of this. Let me just read how I wrote this. I don't want to try and rephrase this. In a small island with very little access to luxuries, even though it was the 1930s, there were luxuries of the time that wouldn't have been available to her. She was a young teenager. It makes a lot of sense that she would make this thing up for entertainment. And then maybe she lost control. Maybe it grew too big for her.
It got too big. She didn't know how to back down from it.
Yes. There's also the chance that her family supported the lie. There's, in my opinion, if this is a true theory, there's a good chance her dad knew and was trying to, I don't know, egg it on. Maybe they liked the
It was like
attention.
a story he made up for her as a child, and it just grew from there.
But she also could have tricked him.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little blurb about Harry Price, and when he visited, him catching her making noises, and that James tried to cover it up and distract him from it. It didn't elaborate a lot.
And you're like, I would like this story to be written firsthand, please.
All of this information, please. One article, and this kind of clicked in my brain as making a lot of sense, likened this story to the Salem witch trials. Mm-hmm. And that actually made me think of you and I when we were younger, because we ran around making up stories all the time. Now, we did things like, the aliens are coming, bah! But I thought that was a really pertinent kind of comparison, because the Salem witch trials essentially happened because of some bored young girls. Mm-hmm. They also think maybe mushrooms, but...
I mean... There's so many things that could be explained by mushrooms.
So many. This podcast, for example.
Surprise!
We're not doing mushrooms. I mean, I love to eat mushrooms, but we're not doing
those
them.
Kind.
Okay, I gotta finish this. I talked too long this time. So, Voira died in 2005. A lot of people thought she was gonna admit it on her deathbed. She didn't. she took to her deathbed that he was real. One of the really far out theories is that it was a poltergeist or spirit that was brought in by essentially like teen girl angst.
I mean, there is a lot of angst in teen girls.
So much. And her being like bored and in a place with nothing,
no electricity,
really,
nothing going on.
Yes. And then of course the Isle of Man is surrounded by lore like this. So, you know, maybe it's not that far out. I'm sure that these are not all of the theories about Jeff. But one also didn't mention that Jeff could be a cryptid of some sort, like Bigfoot or whatever.
That's what I'm going with.
I just don't...
Jeff the mongoose exists somewhere else
Jeff
now.
is not welcome.
Scratching in walls and swearing at people. He probably actually lives in my house.
Spitting on people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good luck with that. I do have just a few thoughts to part with. The family made absolutely no money from Jeff. They didn't write a book. They didn't earn money from the tabloids.
They didn't
nothing.
Have tours to come pay 50 cents to see Jeff the
absolutely nothing.
Awful mongoose.
They really earned nothing but some attention, which could have been what they were after. Who knows?
But then they were very dramatic about how much they hated him.
Yeah. When Jeff spoke to people outside of the home, it was almost always after dark, sometimes even as late as midnight-ish. Those who knew the area well and visitors... Sorry, hang on.
Jeff has ruined Jessica's writing.
I know. What a
He
jerk.
snuck in and was tap, 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 tap.
I think it's Lucifer.
He's a jerk, too.
So, this is a direct quote from a website that I had used to do this. I don't remember what was wrong. Even for those who knew the area well and the visitors who would not, it would not be impossible to mistake the night call of some indigenous animal for the sound of a talking mongoose who was apparently well rehearsed at the sound of a goodbye, was not well rehearsed in the sound of a goodbye, preferring instead to shout "vanished" after he was done talking. Which is now what I'm going to yell every time I leave a room or business.
I'm just imagining some homeless guy on an island that wants to screw with people. And he thinks he's talking to people, but he's actually behind this house talking through the walls, like Mr. Price was saying. And at the end, everything he's like, vanished. And he throws a plume of fake smoke and
there has to be confetti
away.
or grass even or something.
Vanished.
This is widely kind of regarded now as a hoax or not really a folk tale, but just not real. But some people still believe it. I think it's gross. It gives me the creeps. I know the story. I know that it's whatever. I know all the theories, but it still gave me goosebumps to tell you guys the story.
I love my mom and dad a lot.
I'm glad.
But there is no way you're convincing me as a child to play into this game you have going. Dad joke starts off oh, you hear that in the walls?
Right.
Oh, it's mice. But no, maybe what if it's this mongoose? And then the family ravels a story from there.
Right. And the mother didn't seem to be much involved. In fact, she was very standoffish about it, which makes me wonder, and Jeff was apparently meaner to her, which makes me wonder if this was something the girl did, the dad supported, and the mother kept trying to get her to stop, which, go mom. But the reason he was so snarky and sassy toward the mother is because she was mad, even though she was doing it. The daughter was doing it, and she was mad because the mom wouldn't play along, which could also be, some sort of psychosis or something, or a coping mechanism. I don't know. The story creeps me out.
New option that you didn't mention, and maybe I've mentioned this on previous episodes, and perhaps you cut it out. If not,
I cut everything. I try.
It's just fully Jessica episodes. So there's a Reddit story. It's the famous Reddit story of this guy that gets on.
Poop knife?
God, no. But that is also a famous Reddit story. I know that one. No, it's a guy who lives alone, and he posts this story. He's I think my landlord is breaking into my house during the day, but it's really weird. He's leaving me these Post-it notes.
Yes, and the notes are in my handwriting.
Yeah.
I'm not writing them.
Yeah, like all this stuff, and then finally somebody's like, please get your carbon monoxide. Do you have a carbon monoxide detector? Like, please get your carbon monoxide levels checked. So maybe this is just like the first story of a whole family being slowly poisoned by carbon monoxide, and it wasn't enough to like fully poison them to where they didn't wake up, but it was just enough to give them this like group psychosis of a mongoose that lived in their walls and like cussed at them.
Well, and if you think about it, like you said, the Salem witch trials, they think that it could have been spores or something that was getting in the water. What's to say if these people had a ground well or something that they weren't being poisoned?
Just slowly poisoned into this group psychosis of hallucinations, and where this scratching in the walls that's rodents becomes this rodent talking to us and cussing at us.
Well, and if it was based on your emotions, what if Jeff was very nice the days that you were happy, and very cruel the days that you were angry or upset or sad, which is very often when you're 13. Yeah, that's really interesting. I would love to. I wonder if they've ever done any testing or anything on that in that area.
It's gonna come out in the news stories next week.
Seriously, there was something about the Terracotta Army in the news yesterday.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah. I meant to share it, and then I closed it, and then I couldn't get back to it.
Of course.
I needed to write my Jeff the Mongoose story.
I'm so glad you finally shared Jeff the Mongoose with me.
I know.
Except I also hate you a little.
I know. He's
every time
really scary.
Like, the next time a flying squirrel shows up in my walls, I'd be like, no! It's Jeff!
Oh my gosh, right? Oh. Just don't growl back at it.
That's the creepiest part of the story.
Right?
That, like, it started out and he was just, like, scratching and growling, and then he slowly learned language.
All the things he says. Just look up some of it. He's really nasty.
What a jerk.
It's me vomiting about Jeff.
Do you think he's in this Monsters and Creature book?
I think he would belong there.
Or
if he was.
Beasts and Behemoths?
Beasts. He would definitely be in the beasts. Or unless there's cryptids.
Let's learn more.
Cryptids of Avernus or something.
Or something.
I keep punching the microphone. Sorry if those got left in. It happens every single episode. And
Jessica gets really angry, you guys.
I was just going to say, it's not even all my fault.
You think I'm here because I want to be, but it's actually because she threatens me.
It's true.
And if I don't show up, she will punch me instead of the microphone.
She's got to learn her lesson somehow.
Someone has to teach her. So my topic comes because my husband can't keep a secret, which means we have Christmas all year round instead of only on Christmas. Like how I'm holding these 8 books that should have been Christmas presents, but
For you?
No, for my son.
Okay.
For Connor. But the minute Zach received them in the mail, we had to open them. So for Connor's Christmas, he was supposed to receive these 2 sets of the Young Adventurers Guide for Dungeons and Dragons.
Woo-hoo.
So they come in 4-book sets, and there are 2 sets, and they're by Jim Zub and Stacy King. And they seem to be actually licensed by Dungeons and Dragons. They have like the actual Dungeons and Dragons logo on them.
Okay, nice.
And they're made for kids. So obviously Zach and I are trying to make Connor into as much of a nerd as we are. So Zach bought these Dungeons & Dragons Young Adventures guides to try to get Connor excited about it. Here's the mini commercial. It did work. Connor is super stoked about Dungeons & Dragons. He's been really into these books. He's been bringing them to school every day and like drawing the different characters and coming home with stories for us. And going along, we talked last week about New Year's resolutions and words and finishing up the year. My word was listen. And part of it was to listen more to Connor and what he's interested in. So this is my final, I think I called it Connor's Corner before, or now I want to call it like collabs with Connor, because obviously Connor and Carly are going to be YouTube stars someday. So we might as well just get used to collabing with him at this point. This is my final 2024 Connor picked the topics this week, which is both because, hey, more Dungeons and Dragons topics for our Dungeons and Dopamine podcast. So we bought these books for him. He's been really into them. He's been giving us all these drawings and making up all these stories. So my homework for him yesterday before I had to go to a meeting was to go through and pick out some things that he wanted me to talk about on the podcast.
Nice.
So these books, again, there are 8 books. It's 2 sets, and these are in no particular order because we've been playing with them, so I don't know what books come in what set. But there are 8 books, and they are things like Artificers and Alchemy, Dungeons and Tombs, Wizards and Spells, Warriors and Weapons, Dragons and Treasures, Places and Portals. And then, true to Connor's form, he chose to pick his information from Beasts and Behemoths and Monsters and Creatures. And these are really cool. So they're made for like 7 and up, and they're really easy introductions to all these different characters and places and things within Dungeons & Dragons. They keep it kind of kid appropriate, and then they give like strategy and ways to, like, if you run into these creatures, what you could do to deal with them, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. They even give them like a label of how strong they are or how deadly they are. As someone that is a beginner in Dungeons and Dragons, this is really good for me as well as Connor.
I'd love to know how accurate they are to the game. We play 5e, just the current edition.
Strahd is in here. So I
can't learn about Strahd.
I won't tell you.
Except that he's hot.
Luckily, it was not one of the characters that Connor picked.
Otherwise, I'd have to leave them in.
Jessica has to put her earplugs in. But he is in here, so I feel like they must be pretty coordinated with the actual inventors or the writers of Dungeons and Dragons.
We should get out the monster manual at some point. And
we should compare them. I would love to, because I would like to know.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I'll go through some of these, and Connor did pick some characters that I think you will recognize, so we'll see if it sounds familiar.
I'm actually pretty stoked about this.
During the introduction, the Monsters and Creatures book explains that it gives an indicator of the danger level. So 0 is the most harmless, up to 5, which would be the most harmful, and then there's like an epic level, which is for monsters that just can't be...
Tiamat?
Yes. Actually, that is one of them. And then, like I said, it gives the different strategies and stuff. So jumping in, we're going to start. These are all Monsters and Creatures again that Connor picked out for this week. And we start in monsters that live in caverns or dark places. And the first one is a Beholder, which is this little blob-like monster that I guess floats.
Think like Mike Wazowski.
Yes, he does. Yep. Wazowski. He's got the middle eye and the big teeth, and then he has 10 like eye stalks that come off kind of like tentacles, but they all end in an eyeball. And each of these 10 eyeballs has its own special power. So they have the ability to charm you, paralyze you, a fear spell, a slowness spell, enervation, which is just a spell that hurts like a bad burn, telekinesis, which I thought would be like the eye could move things around, but it could actually like focus on you and pick you up and move you around. Sleep, so this eye just makes you fall asleep. Disintegration, so it just makes you disintegrate, turns you into dust. Petrification, kind of Medusa style, turns you into stone. And the last one obviously is just death. The middle eye, the big eye in the middle, is also has an anti-magic cone. So wherever this eye looks, it negates any like magic spells or any magic powers.
So if you're invisible, it will see you.
Yes, yes. And again, these monsters live in like caves or abandoned ruins. Because they can disintegrate people on sight, you would often find like treasures or like materials within their caves because they disintegrate people, and it leaves their treasures and their swords and their armor behind.
What's their rating? Are they rated
They are at
high?
a 4.
Oh,
so a
okay.
4 out of 5.
So,
which I assume is because, the death and the petrification and the disintegration.
Yes, they're very tough in the game. Like, I've never faced one because we've never been high enough level.
Right. And they can float. They just kind of like
Yes.
float around, and they can be very quiet. So they could be above you in like a cave tunnel and you wouldn't even know they were there.
Unlike Mike Wazowski, who does have legs.
And really just wants to make you laugh.
Exactly.
So if you come upon a beholder, you should fight with magic. So if you have like a cleric or any spellcasters, they could put up magic shields to protect you from any of the gazes of these eyes. You want to distract the beholder, so make it so its eyes aren't focusing on you, it's focusing on something else. And you're better to be in close with the beholder versus far away because of their crazy laser eye beams. This is if you are on a mission or an adventure and feel like you're being watched. It could be the beholder, obviously, with all of those eyes. And you don't want to stay put in one spot for too long because it can find you.
Terrifying.
Yes. The next one is a bugbear.
Ah!
And this guy is only a level 1. He's not super deadly.
They're kind of cute.
They are a little cute. Mostly they're big.
Ugly cute.
Yeah.
But they're cute. Yeah. Anyway.
They're very big. Think like bear size. They're bigger than a human. Most of their strength is just brute strength. So they're very strong. They usually have like combat weapons. They're named after a bugbear god. So there's like higher powered bugbears that can come in and they can like charm, frighten, paralyze, poison people. They have a surprise attack, so they can be very quiet, but their first attack is always like strongest. They can come out very strong from that. They're better for like big battles or ambushes or something along those lines. It's not necessarily like it might be your first line of defense. It's probably like not your smartest line of defense. It's just a good soldier, basically. They also, again, live in caves. They are often associated with goblins. They're like a cousin to goblins, but they usually rule over goblins. So I kind of got the idea of like Uruk-hai versus orcs.
Oh, sure.
With
Yeah,
them.
okay.
So if you are fighting a bugbear, you want to stay out of reach. They have really long arms, so that's their biggest strength is that they're just big and brute strength, and they have long arms and they can beat you up.
So ranged weapons or magic.
Yes, but they are also, because they're more like for battle, they're not very loyal, and they can just be hired hands basically. So if you get a chance to take one as a captive, it's very likely that he'll turn on all of his people and just give you all of the information. But you need to be careful. They often travel with goblins. So if you only run into a bugbear, there might be like a horde of goblins behind them. Again, they have that surprise attack. So they could be very stealthy, but they're really going to hurt you if they come off first with that surprise attack. The next one is a carrion crawler. And this looks like a caterpillar with crazy looking tentacles, or like a millipede centipede situation with these awful tentacles.
I hate this.
They are, again, a level 1, and they remind me, I've been reading Dungeon Crawler Carl again, and in Dungeon Crawler Carl they talk about the cleanup mobs, or the janitor mobs. So these carrion crawlers are attracted to, they have a good sense of smell that attracts them to like death and decay and blood. They feed on decaying corpses and things like that. They're really there to clean up the mess after it's all happened, but their tentacles are very poisonous, so if they come across you, they can stun you with their poisonous tentacles. But at that point, they're again just gonna like scuttle you away to hide you away until you die, and they can feed on your like.
That's all.
Yeah,
No biggie.
no big deal. But they don't want to attack you because they're out to get you. They're just looking for like dead prey to feed on afterwards. They're still very gross. I use the word skittering, which creeps me out when you're thinking about bugs, but that's basically what they are. They are super big. A fully grown crawler is 3 times as long as a human, is tall and almost 6 feet high when they crawl around. But they can also rear up on their hind tentacles in combat, so they can get very, very tall. If you come across them, be ready to cure any poisonous wounds, so have like a healer on the ready, and make sure you clean your weapons after a fight because they can smell that blood and death left over, so they might track you down just because of that smell on your weapons. Don't make a lot of noise if you are underground because they can like stalk you for hours at a time and track you down. They can be above you, so be careful with that.
Blech.
Yeah.
I love that you're saying this like it's just an everyday occurrence.
Yes,
like,
be careful of these when you are out and about.
if you're in caves or, heaven forbid, you end up in the Underdark, then just be
watch
quiet.
out for these carrion crawlers. The next one I was very confused about. It's a Demogorgon.
Oh,
But
yeah.
this is not the Demogorgon from Stranger Things.
Sure.
Which was like a weird little flower thing.
Yes.
A Demogorgon from D&D. This is a legendary monster. This was still in the Caverns and Dark Places section, but this is an epic monster. It is even too high to rate in the 0 to 5 setting. What are those called? Scale. Okay. You can't rate it on the 0 to 5 scale. It is an epic monster. And so Demogorgons, I'm going to read this. This is a horrific demon prince who epitomizes the forces of chaos. His massive body is a warped mixture of different creatures all jammed together. The legs, feet, and tail of a dinosaur, the tentacles of a giant octopus, and the upper body of an ape, with a pair of disturbing-looking ape-like heads mounted on top, hungry and roaring.
Gross.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Same. He also has, like it said, the tentacles. There's this big, long, crazy tail. So lots of ways that he can trap you or grab you. He has a stunning or a beguiling gaze. So if he looks at you, you are stunned, you can't move.
When he looks at you, all you can do is, your gaze is stunning.
It's stunning. He also has an insanity gaze, which unravels your mind so your thoughts don't make sense. So these are really big, evil, bad guys. You don't want to deal with these. The only side, or there is a good weakness that they have, the 2 heads, which are named a mule and Hathrada, constantly argue. So if you can get the heads to fight against each other or argue with each other about how best to kill you or how best to deal with you, they will often get distracted because they're too busy arguing with each other, which I thought was interesting.
I feel like I've seen that trope in things, so it kind of makes sense.
Yep. And so the Demogorgon is from a dimension called the Abyss. The abyssal layer called the Gaping Maw is where the Demogorgon's fortress is, and it's partially submerged in dark and deadly water. So most people do not go to see the Demogorgon, but the Prince of Demons can choose to bring the Demogorgon to wherever he travels. The Demogorgon can be up to 18 feet tall, and each of his tentacles are wider than your whole body.
Yep.
So he's pretty awful. The next one is the Displacer Beast.
I love Displacer Beasts.
I was just gonna say, I feel like this one's right up your alley.
They're like...
This is cat-based, like
yes.
jaguar panther-based.
Yes.
Very sleek, big, black cat, essentially,
They're
with
so cute.
really crazy spiked tentacles that come off as almost like where wings would be, but they're these crazy mouth-looking spiked tentacles. This guy is only a level 2, so he's not super deadly, but he does have... Look, there he is!
Irony.
But he does have displacement magic, which basically means that he can, or wherever he appears to be, there is a fake vision of it in front of him or alongside it. So whenever you're trying to fight them, you're probably not fighting them, you're fighting the vision of them. They also have dark vision, so they can see in darkness. And kind of like tigers, which we talked about last week, they can jump and pounce from far distances. They have 6 legs. They're predatory cats covered in blue-black fur with 6 legs and 2 spiked tentacles. Their eyes glow with a deep malice, a fire that cannot be dimmed even in death.
So they're just cats.
Yes, basically. They were originally bred by the Unseelie Fae to hunt unicorns, pegasi, and other marvelous creatures. So they are hunters, they look for prey, they hunt alone or in packs, and they can ambush you. So if you come across a displacer beast, you again want to aim wide and assume that wherever you see the beast is not where the actual body of the beast is. Be alert for tricks because they are cunning. They will stalk and hunt you versus just straight out assault. You never want to chase them because they do hunt in packs sometimes. So if one seems to be retreating, they are probably just leading you back to their pack so you can be attacked by the whole pack. And it says don't stick to a schedule because they are smart enough to actually learn your schedule and then stalk you that way.
They are tigers.
Yes.
You would have seen these as well if you watched the D&D movie. If you've played Wild Beyond the Witchlight,
Hey, I know that one.
He's a good boy though. And if you have played Baldur's Gate, the second act contains one.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing. What about owlbears?
Yes.
Everybody knows about owlbears.
I can turn into an owlbear, actually, in Baldur's Gate. Not in real life. Speaking of psychosis. Watch!
Oh my god, what an awful way to learn. Either one of those. Either after 30 years learning that you have magic powers to turn into an owlbear and you've never told me.
We're learning that I'm absolutely cuckoo bananas.
And think you can turn into an owlbear. Oh my goodness.
I feel like this has to be made into a cartoon of my little character like exploding in an owlbear there.
Ta-da! I'd be so mad at you.
Well, and a little terrified because they're big and scary.
Right, and they're not very smart. Mm-mm. Like, I don't feel like you would still know that I was your friend.
Here, just feed me this when I come to.
And just have like a bucket of salmon to throw at you. Salmon. That would be a really big fish to just throw at you.
Slap. My face hurts.
Yep.
Oh.
So, Connor's next choice was an owlbear. And we've already told you everything you need to know about them. Owlbears are exactly what they sound like. They are bears mixed with owls. They are approximately they're bigger than a grizzly bear. They weigh about 500 pounds. So when they stand, they are bigger than a man. But typically they're on all fours, so they're a little bit shorter. They have very exceptionally good vision, especially in the dark, just like an owl would. But they are very dangerous. They can attack twice in the time it takes most monsters to strike once. They have the sharp beak and the deadly claws.
Sorry, I'm still laughing.
I know. I'm trying not to look at you.
You're doing great.
They are mated
Aww.
creatures, so they mate. It doesn't say mate for life, but it says in mated pairs, so I assume it's for life.
The divorce rate among owlbears is inconceivable.
I'm going to research that for next time.
You maybe talk about the home life and why it's so bad.
This is why owlbears are so cranky. The story reminded me of Buckbeak.
The hippogriff.
The hippogriff. They're difficult to control, but with enough food, they can be trained to perform basic tasks. Goblins sometimes employ them as war mounts. It essentially felt like if you fed them enough fish, they would do whatever you told them. Yes.
You slap them with a salmon, they're all yours.
They go with it. If you stumble upon an owlbear, you can use bait to distract them. Again, you can slap them with a fish or throw one over there to distract them. They are often solitary but may have a mate or cubs nearby, so you want to watch out for other owl bears if you stumble upon one. It says, don't think you can scare them away. They are intelligent but not smart enough to know when they're losing in a battle. So you can't just like... With bears, sometimes you can just get loud and big and they'll run away. The owl bears aren't.
Bear.
Yes.
You just don't.
Just don't. And stay out of... Basically what I learned from this is stay out of creepy caves because it's probably just an evil monster getting ready to come back and eat you.
I mean, I believe it. I'm in.
So we're already past time. So I'll just touch on a couple of the ones from the Beasts and Behemoths book. Connor picked, a lot of them were lycanthropes. He did pick a lot of lycanthropes, which are were creatures. So werewolves, werebears, whatever. Apparently there are a lot of them in Dungeons and Dragons, and I thought this was interesting. It says that in Dungeons and Dragons, a lycanthrope can either defy its curse or embrace it. So you can be a lycanthrope that doesn't want to be a lycanthrope, so a werebear that doesn't want to be, and then when you do turn, your bear doesn't necessarily match with your brain, so you forget what happens during those times.
Split personalities.
Basically. Whereas if you embrace it, you can be more present during the times when you change, but you're probably not. Then your morals have to change a little bit because animal morals versus human morals are obviously very different. So
you might end up doing murders.
Yeah, and you feel more okay with that animalistic side. But I also learned that there are two ways to acquire lycanthropy, either by being wounded or bit by a lycanthrope, or being born to a parent that has lycanthropy. If you acquire lycanthropy by being wounded, you can cure it or remove the curse with a remove curse that is cast by a cleric, paladin, wizard, or warlock. But if you are born into the curse, you can only be freed by the magic of a powerful wish spell.
Oh, those are hard to come by.
I
Those are very high-level spells.
And so Connor had picked a variety of were creatures. He picked a werebear, a wereboar, a were-rat, and a were-tiger. He must have known.
He must have.
I thought it was interesting that they do give each were creature like different personalities. Like the werebear is they're very solitary creatures. They're very in control of their impulses. They don't want to pass the lycanthropy on, so they're more about like keeping nature safe and like keeping their area safe. They're only attacking or going after people if they're like disrespecting the nature. It reminds me of Bjorn from what was that in The Hobbit? I think It was in The Hobbit. So the were-boars and the were-rats are more like bad guy were creatures. Like the rats are they're like the den of thieves where they're
tricky,
sneaky, but they're very involved with their community. Like they know all the tea. You can ask them all the drama and all the gossip and like how things go. Basically, I mean, he was basically a rat. He was a mongoose. They're the same.
They said he had a really fluffy tail.
Oh, well.
But I mean,
it's fine.
Rats are born with weird deficiencies.
Right. And then, like, the were-boars were, like, they're the ones that they don't care if they turn anybody. They're always just out to, like, destroy lives and turn more people into were-boars, and which is funny because you never hear about were-boars in any other stories.
Not at all. Wolves. We have some ravens on our story right now. Were-ravens, which... Like, if I had to choose, it'd be like a were-tiger or a were-raven. Heck yeah.
Right. Not a were-boar.
No, that's just lame.
The were-tigers were very, obviously very strong, but they were very traditional, and they're not trying to change people, or if they do, it's like a process. You have to be inducted into the were-tigers, and you have to have certain qualities and be worthy of being turned into a tiger. Yes.
I don't think I'd be worthy.
Probably not. Neither of us would be.
Probably not. Oh, I mean, neither of us. I'm there too.
Yeah. They'd totally group deny both of us.
As you put your tiger wear ring away.
I wasn't going to tell you.
I mean, I'm already an owlbear, but come on. I'm so confused by everything that comes out of my own mouth.
That's okay. You have me.
Yes, that does help.
And our 2 listeners.
One after this. It's Ryan when he edits.
Thanks, Ryan.
My face hurts so bad from laughing so hard this episode. I hope I get to keep a lot of it in.
I try not to go too far over so that you could keep most of it, so it doesn't become the library episode. Where
This one's funny, so I might be able to keep more of it.
Right.
This
One might actually interest people, since it's not just you talking about libraries.
Exactly. Took the words right out of her mouth.
Talking about all the same information you gave us last week.
I feel so tired.
We got through 1 episode today, and then we just had to give
I
up.
had to sleep. My face hurts. Well, this was Dungeons and Dopamine Podcast.
You can listen to us anywhere you stream podcasts.
And on YouTube.
Thank you. That too.
You can support us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/dungeonsdopamine.
You can also find us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit.
Yes, I finally told the eulogy of my alive mother story on TikTok. So if you want to hear the story from beginning to end, you can head over there. You can also hear about the Waddle Like the Duck guy. I think I've already talked about that, but I retell it in
So many good travel stories.
they're never gonna let me travel again.
They
the
just
travel
in general.
gods.
All of the airlines are like, don't let
Thank
her.
you. No, thank you. Oh, you can reach out to us on any of those social medias or at dungeonsdopamine@yahoo.com.
And Dungeons and Dopamine is edited and published by Argyle Pigeon Productions.
I would be a were-pigeon. Then I could just coo into the microphone.
It's perfect.
Jeez, how did I never think of this? Anyway, thanks.
Now you know what Jessica's next character was.
Ah! Bree spilled water on my floor. Okay, we love you.
Okay, we love you. Bye.
Bye.